Apple is, well, you know, a company that makes a bunch of products but focuses now on phones. Expensive ones, but this is a little bit different. 4 years ago, Apple came out with a small iPhone called the iPhone SE. 4 years later, we have the same idea but a bigger, small design. Both cost $400, which is refreshing when compared to the $700 iPhone 11 and the $1,000 iPhone 11 Pro. But it is cheap, for a reason. If you don't know by now, my name is Matt and this is Real World Review. I feel that this style of review is a little bit special, so it seems fitting to review the iPhone SE, which can also be called the iPhone Special Edition, or my favorite name, the iPhone Sloppy Edition. Anyways, let's talk about it. This 4.7-inch screen is unacceptable by 2020 standards. Even at a $400 starting price, the screen is just disappointing. Well, on paper at least. This is a 4.7-inch IPS LCD with a screen resolution of 750 by 1334 and a screen ratio of 16 by 9. That last part confuses me because there will not be a single flagship phone this year with a 16 by 9 ratio because no one uses that anymore. It is the same exact screen as the iPhone 8 with the 3D touch layer omitted. Just like the iPhone 8, there is no tap to wake because the home button with the Touch ID sensor is still on this phone, but I'd rather take Face ID, let's be honest. The screen is bright, but not by flagship standards, being dimmer than even last year's OLED screens. This is a Retina HD display, with the HD part being a really tough sell at 720p at 326 pixels per inch. For a flagship, this screen is not acceptable, but in real world usage, okay, it's pretty much the same. The screen washes out really bad in sunlight, so when we're able to go back outside, good luck. And with the sun out, it heats up the phone and dims the screen even more. But when you're inside, like you should when this video comes out, the screen looks good. The colors are clear and accurate as you would expect on an LCD, especially coming from Apple. It is disappointing for me or someone coming from pretty much any OLED device, but at this price point, it is acceptable. Still, 750p in 2020? Come on, Apple. This is another disappointment for me. Remember that this phone has an A13 Bionic chip in it with 3GB of RAM, just like the iPhone XR. With this said, there's barely any heat dissipation in this iPhone 8 lookalike. So when the phone gets used a lot, there are some heat issues. One of them is the battery. This phone is super fast, so when you use the phone for tasks, it's easy to get in and out and go back to sleep mode. However, if you're using social media a lot, playing games, and so on, your battery will not appreciate that. On days where I didn't use my phone that much, like at work or with friends and family, the battery lasted a whole day, easy. On days where I didn't have to work or didn't have much to do, I would stick to my phone and the battery would drain really quickly. I keep my screen at full brightness all the time, but I expected to get more than 3 hours of screen on time out of this battery. I would estimate a max of 4 to 5 hours of screen on time before a drained battery happens, which isn't entirely the best, especially for a 750p screen. This may be because Apple decided to put a more powerful processor in this phone when compared to the iPhone 8, or because they left the iPhone 8 battery in this phone. Either way, they got rid of 3D touch, which is supposed to make more room for a bigger battery, but I was right. It never did. And if you want to see those Geekbench 4 battery tests, here you go. It's not that good. Now with that said, this is a $400 phone, so sure, 1 day battery life is accepted, but Apple puts a 1821 mAh battery in this phone, just like they did with the iPhone 8. The $129 Motorola G7 Play has a weaker processor and a 3000 mAh battery, so Apple really doesn't have any excuse for putting a better battery in this phone. It just means that if Apple does put a better battery in this phone, it will be a much better buy, which doesn't sound bad at all. Now here's the redeeming quality for this phone, or even the reason why this phone will even sell: the cameras. This single 12 megapixel camera sounds weak, but it's pretty much the same thing as the iPhone XR, and it takes amazing shots during the day, but night shots need some work. There's no wide angle sensor, no telephoto sensor, but shots still come out looking as nice as you would expect on a flagship Apple device, but in a $400 package. Then again, the Google Pixel 3a did the same thing at the same price, so it's not the first time it happened, and I guess technically the original iPhone SE did the same thing. It does portrait mode, but only on faces, just like the iPhone XR. With this said, most of the portrait mode is software and hardware, the processor, but it doesn't have night mode, which heavily relies on the processor, so what's up with that, Apple? The camera also shoots 4K at 60 frames per second, which isn't too surprising because that's what the iPhone 8 could do. But if you take a phone like, I don't know, the Pixel 3 XL, which can't even do 60 frames per second consistently on any video quality, you will see that this is a nice feature, especially for that price point. Not to mention that stability looks really similar to the iPhone 11 Pro, even at 4K 60 frames per second. You still have slow motion, only on the back camera, not on the front camera, and it is able to capture 1080p 120 or 240 frames per second and 720p at 240 frames per second. 1080p at 240 frames per second is cool, but it's kind of gimmicky for me, but it may be useful for some. You also get the software features similar to the iPhone 11 models, but again, no night mode. Kind of annoying, but what are you going to do? The front camera is boring to me. It's the same as the iPhone 8, a 7 megapixel shooter that takes decent shots and shoots video at 1080p 30 frames per second. That's it. You do get portrait mode on that, and it works. It could be better, but it works. Overall, you get a nice little setup with the cameras. Could be better, but again, $399. Now you may think that I'm being hard on this phone, and I kind of am. For an iPhone, this is a weird design to me. Or maybe even a special design, if you may. Given this price point, this is an awesome design. I'm not a fan of the screen or the battery, but the rest of the phone is pretty awesome. First of all, this is a dual SIM phone, which is good for traveling and not what the iPhone 8 was. Not to mention that you get gigabit class LTE, which isn't 5G, but it's still faster than most LTE phones. With the 6-core processor, you get 3 gigabytes of RAM, which sounds low, but it's the same as what the iPhone 10 and 10R have. You get fast 18-watt charging along with 7.5-watt wireless charging, which works really fast with that small 1,821 milliamp battery. You also get Bluetooth 5.0, which is normal, but it also has Wi-Fi 6, which is being put into newer flagship phones. However, there's no U1 chip, which is found in the iPhone 11 and 11 Pro, and it's used for faster peer-to-peer transfer with local phones, like using AirDrop. You also get water resistance and stereo speakers, just like the iPhone 8. On the outside, you have the same aluminum frame and a glass back, which says nothing and has a centered Apple logo. Besides that, everything looks the same as the iPhone 8, except for the white phone has a black screen. By the way, all these upgrades and it still weighs the same as the iPhone 8, but it is missing that thin and light 3D touch layer. This small frame can be frustrating for people not used to small phones, like I am, but for those that are, you'll love the little upgrades to your favorite phone. The other upside is that all your iPhone 7 or iPhone 8 cases will work with this phone. And that's actually pretty cool, or lazy on Apple's part. I've been bugging you about the price throughout this video, but there is a good reason for it. This phone starts at 64 gigabytes at $399 and goes to 256 gigabytes at $549. These are not bad prices, especially considering that you can get a $1,000 phone processor and cameras into this $399 body. But is it really? The battery comes from the old $450 iPhone 8. The processor, LTE, and Wi-Fi 6 come from the $699 iPhone 11. The rear camera comes from the $599 iPhone XR, and the rest seems to be from the iPhone 8 as well, just like the screen. This is priced perfectly for people wanting to upgrade their iPhone 6, 6S, 7, or 8, or someone who wants to get a cheap and small iPhone. At this price point, I would think there's a lot of people that would consider this phone if they are low on storage, their battery sucks, or their phone is slow. This is not the phone for someone like me who uses flagship and large phones all the time. I mean, this phone makes my iPhone 10 feel big when it's kind of a smallish phone to begin with. I don't like this phone for that reason, but it doesn't mean that you can't. This is a perfect phone for Apple to sell, just like the original iPhone SE, but that one seemed to be a better upgrade than what we got with this year's iPhone SE. Even small things like the black and white screens on the 2016 SE, while the 2020 SE only comes in one, which is black. Even the phone colors, 4 colors on the iPhone SE 2016, 3 on the iPhone SE 2020. Another thing is quality control. Now this phone is the only one that I've seen with this issue, but it seems to me that the screen isn't lined up properly. Who knows if this happens on anyone else's iPhone SE, but it would make sense given the price point. And that's it for the review of the cheapest iPhone you can buy. As much as I don't like it, this isn't a bad phone. It is a good way for Apple to get people in their ecosystem, just like they do with the $329 iPad and the $999 MacBook Air. This phone isn't for everyone, but at $399, it is a good way for Apple to get people talking. Let me know what you think in the comment section, along with any other questions you have, or message me on Twitter at MattofRWR. And feel free to follow me on the social media listed above, as well as subscribing for more review and repair videos. And hit that bell button for some new videos. Thanks for watching.